Silence for 3,000 years, shattered by a single, terrifying sight. In 1881, amidst the arid cliffs of a hidden tomb cache was unearthed, revealing a royal secret. Dozens of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs, including Ramesses the Great, had been moved from their grand tombs and bundled together to protect them from ancient grave robbers. As Egyptologists carefully worked through the incredible find, they came across a coffin that was utterly out of place, while the others were ornate, covered in gold and hieroglyphs, telling tales of glory. This one was plain, crude, and completely unmarked. There was an unsettling aura about it, a deliberate anonymity that felt more like a curse than a protection. When the lid was finally pried open, a collective gasp echoed in the dusty chamber. Inside lay a mummy, whose face was frozen in an eternal, silent scream of pure agony. His hands and feet were bound so tightly the leather had dug into his flesh, and his body was contorted as if in the final throes of a violent struggle. This was not the peaceful slumber of a revered king. This was the ghastly echo of a terrible death, and the mystery of who he was, and what unspeakable fate he had suffered, had just begun. The anomalies surrounding this mummy, dubbed Unknown Man-E, were deeply disturbing. He was wrapped not in the fine linen reserved for royalty, but in a sheepskin-on object considered so ritually impure by ancient Egyptians that it was believed to bar the deceased from ever reaching the afterlife. This wasn't a burial, it was an act of damnation. It was a calculated effort to erase someone from existence, both in this world and the next. His internal organs, which were meticulously removed and preserved in canopic jars during a proper mummification, were left to rot inside his body. The entire process was rushed, brutal, and designed to inflict the ultimate punishment. The question wasn't just how he died, but what crime could possibly warrant such a horrific and eternal condemnation. The clues pointed not to a commoner, but to a royal scandal so profound that it had to be buried in the deepest, most anonymous way possible. The search for answers would lead investigators back in time, to the gilded but treacherous court of one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs. The trail led to the 20th dynasty and the reign of Ramesses III, a pharaoh who presided over a period of immense turmoil and external threats. While he was celebrated for defending Egypt from invading sea peoples, his greatest danger was lurking within the walls of his own palace. According to a surviving document known as the Judicial Papyrus of Turin, a treacherous plot was hatched within the royal harem. One of Ramesses' secondary wives, Queen Tai, desperate to see her own son, Prince Pentawar, ascend to the throne instead of the designated heir, orchestrated a full-blown conspiracy. The plan was audacious and bloody, to assassinate the pharaoh and install Pentua as the new ruler of Egypt. She gathered a cabal of high-ranking officials, military commanders, sorcerers, and servants, all bound by ambition and secrecy. They used black magic and crafted wax figures to cast spells against the pharaoh and his guards, while others planned the physical attack. The conspiracy was a venomous snake coiled at the heart of the empire, ready to strike. But the plot ultimately failed. The historical record shows that the conspiracy was discovered, and the conspirators were rounded up and put on trial. The Judicial Papyrus lists their names and their grim fates. Many were executed. Others, particularly those of high rank who could not be subjected to a common execution, were dealt with differently. The papyrus states they were left to their own devices after being found guilty, a chilling euphemism for being forced to take their own lives. Among them was the central figure of the plot, Prince Pentawar. The text is deliberately vague about his end, simply stating that the judges left him in his place. He took his own life. This historical footnote, a story of a disgraced prince who committed a heinous act of treason, provided the perfect profile for the screaming man in the unmarked coffin. Could Unknown Man-E be the prince who tried to murder his own father, forever punished with a burial designed to deny him his name, his status, and his soul? For more than a century, the theory of Prince Pentawar was compelling but remained pure speculation. There was no way to definitively link the disgraced prince to the screaming mummy. But the dawn of the 21st century brought with it tools the ancient Egyptians could have never imagined. Scientists subjected Unknown Man-E to a battery of modern forensic tests, peeling back the layers of his mystery with technology. CT scans revealed he was a young man, around the Isiochu, 20 years old, who died not from disease or injury, but from suffocation. His chest was inflated, and there were distinct markings around his neck consistent with hanging or strangulation. This perfectly matched the historical account of a forced, self-inflicted end. The most groundbreaking revelation, however, came from his DNA. Samples were taken from Unknown Man-E and compared to the DNA of the confirmed mummy of Ramesses III. The results were astounding. a perfect paternal match. Science had finally proven that the screaming man was, without a doubt, the biological son of the very Pharaoh he was accused of plotting to kill. With his identity all but confirmed, only one horrifying detail remained unexplained. The scream itself. For decades, it had fueled tales of curses and theories of being buried alive. The truth, however, was rooted in the cold, clinical reality of death and the deliberate malice of his buriers. The scream was not the result of his final moments of pain, but a post-mortem phenomenon known as jaw drop. During a proper royal mummification, the embalmers would carefully bind the jaw shut with strips of linen to ensure the deceased had a serene, godlike expression for eternity. But Pharaoh was denied this dignity. In the haste and contempt of his shameful burial, his jaw was left unbound. As his muscles and ligaments relaxed after death, gravity took over, pulling his mouth open into the wide, agonized gape that would horrify the world 3 millennia later. The scream wasn't a sound he ever made. It was a permanent physical scar of his disgrace. A final, silent testament to the fact that his enemies had succeeded in damning him to an eternity of horror. Just as the world thought the chilling case of the screaming mummy was finally closed, another shocking discovery revealed he was not alone. In the very same cache of royal mummies, another figure, designated Unknown Woman A, was also found with a similar expression of terror frozen on her face. Her story, however, was vastly different. Unlike Pharaoh, she had received a pristine hikwavidi mummification. She was carefully embalmed, wrapped in the finest linen, and laid to rest with the dignity befitting a royal. Yet, her mouth was also wide open in a scream. Scientists investigating her remains determined she was likely a princess who died suddenly in her 60s, with evidence pointing to a massive and sudden heart attack. It's believed that she may have died alone, and by the time she was discovered, rigor mortis had already set in, making it impossible for the embalmers to close her mouth. Her scream was not a mark of punishment, but a tragic accident of fate, preserved forever by the mummification process. The tale of the screaming mummies is a powerful reminder that history's most terrifying mysteries often have deeply human, and sometimes brutal, explanations. In Pharaoh we see a story of ambition, treason, and a punishment so severe it was designed to echo through eternity. His scream is the visual embodiment of disgrace, a legacy of a son who betrayed his father. In the screaming woman, we see a different kind of tragedia, sudden end to a noble life, her final moment of shock or pain immortalized by chance. Together, they show us that behind the gold masks and towering pyramids, the world of ancient Egypt was filled with the same raw emotions that drive us today: love, greed, loyalty, and betrayal. The dead do tell tales, but sometimes their most shocking stories are not written in hieroglyphs, but are carved into their very bones. What do you think is the most shocking part of this story? The royal conspiracy, or the scientific truth behind the scream? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into one of history's darkest secrets, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration of the unknown.